Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So I used to love this YouTuber when I was back in my emo, I hate everyone rar XD phase. I know, it's horrible. I'm very grateful I'm not there anymore. Then the shit show around him started and then I got out as fast as I could because honestly, crazy person. So on my last video relating to this subject, Jade Dragon asked me to read his other books, and today I was painfully bored and I wanted to procrastinate my university work, so I figured, sure, let's procrastinate by reading this book. So Onision's second book is called, what is it called? This Is Why I Hate You, which I can only assume is just directed towards the people who doesn't agree with him, who don't follow him blindly. You know, just a regular big F you to all the people who don't just accept his opinions as the one truth. But I don't know, it might just be an overly dramatic title. You know, he's got a thing for the dramatics. Also, before I start, what qualifies me to review this book? Absolutely nothing. I'm an avid reader, I have opinions, I have common sense. That's it. That's what qualifies me. Okay, so let's read what Onision decided to write us the little blurb about the book on Amazon. Within these pages wait violent fights, disease, death, controversy, sexuality, tragedy, and crime. This journal documents a hateful young man's path to darkness. Drama. Many events that occur are based on real events. No shit, this becomes painfully obvious later. You will find many moments from the author's own life sewn into the life of Arthur Gale. No, you won't. You don't find any moments from his life sewn into this book, okay? It's all just his life, basically. You can only go so far before all hope of return is lost. This book reaches that point and goes even further. James represented the light. Arthur is the dark. There is no hero. There is only Arthur. Oh my god. Drama! Like, why? This is so overly dramatic. Why would you do this? No, okay? Unless you're writing like a fantasy epic, there's no, just no. Like, there's no hero, only Arthur. Like, who do you think you are? Stop it. You're a YouTuber. And that's a loose term in this case. So let's start with reading one of my absolute favorite lines from this book. I have no one to talk to, no one to hear me, and not automatically say something dreadfully idiotic in response. And then, later on the same page, how do you express yourself to people when you don't feel they're worth the time? Right, like right off the bat we have the same kind of holier than thou attitude that just went through the entire Stones of Abigail book. This is the exact same thing again, except with another name for the character. It's the exact same thing, okay? Like the illusions of this grandeur that Onision has is again mirrored in this main character. Onision, if you're by any chance listening to this, stop inserting yourself into the book. Stop. Unless this is like your biography. Stop it. It's like the first thing you learn as a writer. You can take from your own experiences, but you don't put yourself into the book. Don't. Just no. The only person, and I stand by this, that can put himself into his creative work was Stan Lee, and no one else can do it. No one else can pull it off. It is impossible. So just stop. Here is another one of the lines that I really appreciate in this book. How do you express yourself to people when they're living in an entirely different world than you? What are you, an alien? Come on, don't let the dramatics are just... Ugh. too much, really, too much. 3 quotes that are absolutely hilarious because it makes it so obvious that this isn't like a made-up character. This is just Onision writing about Onision. Listen to this. I can handle criticism, but stupidity is contagious. I'll have nothing to do with them. Which is, obviously a jab at people who have a different opinion than him, and then obviously he thinks like that's stupid because he's the only one who knows everything. There is also this gem. I feel most everyone I encounter is beneath me. No shit. Okay. And this is actually kind of hilarious. Just listen to this. This is an actual line in an actual book that he dead serious wrote. Who are these meaningless flesh puppets? I'm sorry, I can't keep myself from laughing. This is just too much. Who are these meaningless flesh puppets? These wasted human shells, born like cattle, only to wither like fruit and die as if they never existed to begin with. What is that? Why? Why would you write something like this? It's so stupid. I'm sorry for laughing, I'm sorry, but it's just so dumb. Why? It's like this fake deep stuff you could imagine like a fake depressed 13-year-old girl would write. This is just, no. Okay, I'm done laughing now. For now, I'm gonna laugh more later because this is, it's just so moronic. Okay, another quote. You reading this now admit your life is meaningless and admits you don't matter. Why? That's my only comment to that sentence. Why? So Onision is a very, very well-known atheist because he just won't shut up about being one. He's kind of like a vegan, which apparently he also is, I think, because he also won't shut up about that for some reason. Which is super annoying. I hate people who have like this like one character trait and then they base like their whole life around that. Like, stop. No one cares that you're an atheist, okay? Just be an atheist and shut up about it. You don't see me constantly going around telling people I'm an atheist because I know people don't care. I'm not that important. People don't care what I believe in, and no one cares what you believe in either, Greg. Just face facts, okay? He writes this about religious people. Sure, Dad, tell me more about how your love for a made-up super god has brought you so much happiness. Every time you do, I think of all the atheist millionaires who accomplish more for them than your magical invisible deity ever will for you. First of all, that's incredibly demeaning to say to religious people, like right off the bat. Like I said, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I have a lot of Christian friends and I don't view them as lesser just because they happen to believe in something I don't. That's just stupid. Like, religion is a part of human nature and you can't look down on people for not believing the same thing you do. So dumb and immature to like comment on something like that and to say it like that. So if you know anything about Onision, except that he's an atheist, you probably also know that he's not that into parental relationships. He doesn't really care for his parents, or at least for his dad, and I can't help but feel like this dad character in the book is just a malplaced attempt at some kind of weird therapeutic writing, which is, all good in theory. Writing can be extremely therapeutic because I would know, I use it myself, but you don't publish that. Also, when it's this obvious, you probably should keep it to yourself. Just a thought. In the first chapter, because yes, we're still on the first chapter because there's so much stupidity in just the first chapter that I have to go through all of this with you. He also makes very interesting commentary on obese people and overweight people, which is, again, if you've ever seen anything he's done, it's a that strange. I mean, I'm not surprised because it's kind of well known that he doesn't really care for people who aren't super skinny. So here is an interesting thing that he writes. Here's the thing, lad. You're fat, not me. You're a bloated mess of a human being. You run for miles every day and look at you. You're still an obese and grotesque simpleton. That's so mean. Like, why would... So mean. Also, if someone runs for miles every day, like legit runs miles every day, and they're still overweight, they probably have a glandular issue. So, you know, doctors and medication would be a nice guess in this case. Okay, to summarize the first chapter of this book. No one is worth anything. Life isn't worth anything. Like, everything is worthless. Onision tries desperately to be deep, and he fails miserably. The entire first chapter is stocked full of repetition. It's just the same thing over and over again for pages of content. Jerry, the dad, is just trying to take care of his son, who is obviously insane, the level of content we're at here. Chapter 2 starts with these interesting words. It's been weeks since I last wrote in this journal. You could assume this was due to laziness, but I rarely suffer from that degenerative disease. Why would you? I mean, you're a carbon copy of Onision. You're perfect. Why would you ever have, like, any flaws at all? Here is another thing that clearly points to this Arthur character as being just, like, a copy of Onision. Because this entire book is written as, like, a journal, kind of. So here's what Arthur writes in chapter 2. Facts are the enemy of belief. Which, you know, can be true in most cases, but it's still just... There's so much Onision in that sentence. I mean, he's the self-proclaimed fact machine. Yeah, he said that about himself. No one else used it. He was just like, I am the fact machine, and people were like, okay, crazy person, you be whatever you want to be. Are the little green men telling you that you are the fact machine? I shouldn't laugh at my own bad jokes. That's not a nice character trait. I'm not gonna go through the chapters, like break them down by one because they're just so full of craziness and insanity throughout. Like, this video would be hours long. There's so much to talk about here. But at the end of chapter 2, still not a sign of any kind of plot or any kind of, like, possible character development. Like, there's nothing. Just nothing. Apparently Arthur has a girlfriend. That's it. Then, like, after that, nothing else. Just that. It's basically a copy of the first chapter. Kind of like Arthur is a copy of Onision, who is a copy of James. There's so many of them, there's hard to keep count, okay? They're all stupid. There's the same, like, overly dramatic stuff, fake deep things. Like, you can't just throw fake deep things onto a page and call it a book, Onision. That's not how this works. Like, he tries to be so deep in this book, which is what really frustrates me, because he really tries, and it's so obvious that he tries way too hard. But this book is just his own messy thoughts cramped on the pages turned into a book. The book is pretty troubling though, because there are a lot of, like, dark fantasies that the main character has. And there's something about them that makes me really doubt that Onision hasn't had them himself. I will read again these segments to you. And these are also these are direct quotes, by the way. I'm not making anything up, I'm not adding anything, I'm not retracting anything. This is exactly as it is written in the book. Speaking of sports, I've fantasized about a massive weapon going off in the middle of a major sporting event. because that's something normal people write in a book and publish, and they still think it's a good idea. Here's another. I experienced an intense urge to walk around that table and stick a knife in the back of each of their thoughtless little heads. And another, though this one is only violent towards himself. It's all part of why I haven't found my place at the end of a rope just yet. Like, isn't that worrying? Am I the only one who's like, this person is clearly not sane, like this is not something that you write into a book and then you publish it for the world to see. No, like who thinks these kind of things? Ugh. It gives me the creeps just like thinking about it. So it's no secret that Greg thinks he's like the only one with any kind of valid opinion on, well, anything. It's no secret that he thinks like every single person who doesn't follow his opinion blindly is lesser. And this book is just 115 pages of that. There's not really all that much to it. But wait, there's more stupidity. There's no content, but there is so much stupidity in this book. So somewhere in the middle of this book, I think it was the third chapter, I haven't written it down in my notes, but I think it was the third or fourth chapter. Greg gets to live out another one of his really weird fantasies, controlling what his girlfriend wears. He's clearly a huge control freak when it comes to a lot of different things, apparently also this, which I didn't know before reading this. Just listen to this line from the book. I was overwhelmed by her gesture of loyalty. I never wanted to physically dominate someone more than I had in that moment. That's a direct following of him ordering his girlfriend to wear black, by the way. I'm getting kind of flashbacks to the whole, like, what was her name? Billy, I think? That whole thing, like, just let me control you or I will never forgive you. It's a scary thing. It's a really, really scary thing that someone is, like, constantly using this as some kind of fantasy or something. Especially knowing what he asked her, like, in real life, and then there is, like, this written down. It gives me a very uneasy feeling. Okay, so just like in the first book, there is there's 6 in this one, and it makes me so uncomfortable because it's meant to be like, you know, cute and kind of, you know, romantic, and, you know, that's what you want when you write this type of scene. But it's not, because it's so obvious that this Arthur character is just a copy of Greg, that it feels very strange to read about him in that kind of context. It just kind of makes me gag a little bit, to be honest. Like, when I read it, I was like, huh, no, no, nuh-uh. So actually I read like the first 2 lines and then I skipped because I couldn't read it, and I don't want anyone else to read that. I looked in my notes and this is awesome. Okay, there is one sentence in this book that I genuinely love it because it's so funny. Okay, I might not be able to keep a straight face when reading this, just like a heads up. It's this one. I absolutely adore it. He kept looking at his walking pile of fat crotch puppet vagina with legs. I can't with this one. It's too funny. I'm sorry, but it's just... Who constructs a sentence like that? Okay, I'm gonna collect myself and then I'm gonna come back just a second. Okay, so in the middle of this book, Arthur gets into a fight. Somehow I get the feeling that it's supposed to be like this heroic moment once again, but no, I don't feel that. I don't feel like this is anything positive from like his side of the story. It's just a thing that happens that doesn't do it for me in any kind of creative sense. It's just like, okay, sure, fight scene, yay. Like, for someone who claims to be above violence, he has a lot of violent fantasies and tendencies, and they kind of show through in this book. It's a very uncomfortable read. The middle of the book I don't really care on commenting on further, because it's just really obvious that this is just a continuation on like Greg's life, like moments of his life just kind of like thrust into a book, and then he's changed like the names. You know, there's military service, so on, like stuff that we know has happened to him because he has put his entire life on the internet. So it's not really that interesting. So, you know, like the whole part of the book where you're supposed to like be building tension and be like building for the end event where everything is supposed to be like resolved, or at least where there's supposed to be like a crescendo, kind of disappears, which makes it impossible to build to a crescendo. Like there's nothing to build on. So during the middle of the book, Rachel is introduced. She doesn't really have a purpose in the book. It's kind of like the friends from the first book I read about him. Like, she's just kind of here to build his character up, which, you know, it's very transparent, so it fails very obviously, but that's what she's here to do. So she doesn't really serve a real purpose, just like Ashley and later on Corey. They're just kind of like damsel in distress, sex objects, blind follower characters to build up Arthur. Like, basically they're just here to enable Greg to have his like hero fantasies again. They're nothing but like empty vessels for him to use, which, you know, in the beginning every character is like an empty vessel. You just kind of have to add on to them. You have to fill them with something. The thing is, Greg never manages to fill his characters with like anything. Like, they don't really have characteristics or anything unless they're the main character, and then they're just like a copy of him. So the other characters are really empty and really flat, and there's nothing to them. They're just kind of there. Let's go to the end, shall we? Because this is getting to be a very long video. So in the end, Greg / Arthur character, man, boy, saves the damsels in distress by killing people. I know, it keeps getting dumber and dumber throughout the book. And again here, just like in the first one, I have to kind of smile because it's obvious this book hasn't been proofread at all. Like, it's filled with errors here and there, and then this is a very obvious one, which also makes this part of the chapter really anticlimactic, because he writes this. Unfortunately for Asher, I had to kill him creatively using my bare hands. Not like bare, like naked or like only bear, as in the forest animal, you know, the big brown one. That bear. Like, please just proofread your books. Like, they already suck from the beginning. The least you can do is make sure that the spelling is correct. Please. Like, please tell me the third one is going to be proofread. I'm not doing it. Unless it's proofread, I'm not doing it. So, spoiler alert, Arthur dies, and I feel nothing. Like, absolutely nothing, because there hasn't been any character arcs. There hasn't been like any development at all in kind of like anything. He gets a puncture wound to the back of the head during a fight. The whole damsel in distress thing is kind of resolved that way. Yeah, that's kind of it. The death is probably meant to be like dramatic and tragic and sudden, but I mean, I don't feel anything for this character. Why would I? It's a horrible character. He has like no redeeming qualities. He's just blah. So yeah, I don't feel really anything about this chapter except like relief that the book is almost over, because we only have the final chapter left. And that's written by Corey. I think it's never actually confirmed, but she keeps writing in Arthur's journal. And the final chapter is just kind of a shrine to Arthur Gregg person. They talk about how much of a good man he was, and like how he saved them and how he was so loving and caring. But throughout the book it's really obvious that he isn't. He's just very manipulative and in general a very bad person and a very childish person. So yeah, I don't really care still about his death. It's just kind of like, okay, that happened. And then they also talk about this, like how much he went through as a child, and there is the I word mentioned and the R word is mentioned. The thing is, Greg has chosen to like kind of pile on the traumas, which probably was meant to have like this effect of, oh, he went through so much, now I care. But instead it kind of has the opposite, because he piles them on so much. Like he has so many different things in here that it kind of gets to the point where it kind of takes the edge off all of them, you know? Like there's just too much. So again, sadly, I don't really care. So instead of like building an actual like character arc and like allowing progression and development in this character, he has just like kept him the exact same for every chapter except the final one, and then he's just exploited real actual traumas that people have to, I don't know, try and make his character likable, and then he still fails. So that's nice. So this book was a shit show. I can't say I was surprised, but I didn't think it would be worse than Stones to Abigail. Boy, was I wrong! Because this book shares like all the annoying elements from the first one, and it adds on its own. And also, like, by the way, it was very obvious that the whole Corey, Rachel, Arthur triangle relationship was based on his actual relationship. You know, the relationship with the whole basement thing. Yeah, I mean, sure, as a writer, all good writers take from their own life in some way. But you're not supposed to make it this obvious and this much in like one word. It's just, it's too much, and it makes the whole book so unlikable, and it's such a bore to read. It's awful. It's really, really awful. This Is Why I Hate You is also way more dramatic than Stones to Abigail, which I didn't think was possible, but apparently it is. He tries to use actual traumas that people have for his own benefit, which is an awful thing. However, I do feel the need to say I don't know if he actually has any of these traumas, because, you know, I don't follow him anymore, so I don't know. Maybe he does, but still, if he doesn't, that's an awful thing to do, and I also don't feel like it would be below him to do so, which is worrying, to say the least. And the thing that annoys me the most with any book that's poorly written is the fact that there's no character development. That's a crucial thing for the reader to start caring about your characters. If you don't have character development, you basically don't have a book. It's kind of like leaving out the storyline, which he kind of also did here. But you can't have a book without character development. That's not how it works. You need characters to develop, you need them to grow, you need them to change at least in some way. But that seems to never happen in his books. To call this a book, if you ask me, is actually pretty generous. I would prefer Dumpster Fire, but you know, to each their own. You can call it a book if you want. Would I recommend it to a friend? No. Would I recommend it to an enemy? Also no, because I don't feel like anyone should be subjected to reading this. So yeah, thanks for listening to my review and my opinions on this book. If we reach I don't know, 40 likes, I will do his next book next week. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up so I know that you enjoyed it, and then I can make more content like this in the future. If you would like to watch something else that I have made, you can click either here or here. And other than that, I will see you next time. Bye. Also subscribe to the channel. Thank you.